Welcome everyone to this session of FIT's 15th Annual Sustainability Conference. Our panel is called More Than Clickbait, How to Use Social Storytelling for Meaningful Sustainability. I'm Sasha Arijanto, I'll be moderating the panel, and I'm joined by Wendy Liu, or as you may know her, with Wendy. Wendy is a YouTuber on a mission to show you that, yes, you can make your own clothes. Her YouTube channel boasts 1.3 million subscribers and has amassed over 65 million views since she started uploading in 2011. And for all you math nerds, that's a decade. Wendy's sewing projects are like ASMR for the eyes, a soothing journey from inspiration to finished project, showing fellow fashion fans how to make everything from red carpet gowns to the perfect shorts to Netflix-inspired prom dresses made from upcycled and thrifted clothes. Wendy's focus on slow fashion and DIYs shows viewers they have more sustainable options and has inspired and empowered a crop of new makers to take their own eco-chic journeys. Danielle Milton has spent the past 4 years growing fashion's top e-commerce brands at Google. As a marketing strategist, she created digital strategies that bring brands and consumers together across multiple platforms. We're lucky that she's just recently joined YouTube as a partner manager, where she works with luxuries, fashion brands, and beauty creators to tell their stories through digital video. At YouTube, she's focused on creating programming around inclusive spaces that support and center Black designers and creatives. And I'd be remiss to say that Danielle is a proud Texan currently beaming into your screen from Houston. And I'm Sasha Arijanto. I lead fashion and beauty partnerships here at YouTube, where I work with brands, publications, and fashion icons. So I always like to start off with a bit of an icebreaker. So tell me, Wendy and Danielle, what was the first time that you recognized sustainability was going to be an important part of your journey? Was it a light bulb moment or something that came to you over an experience?
Mine might have been more of a light bulb moment. I think like like when I started sewing, I just really treated it as like, you start with the raw fabric, you cut it into various shapes, you start putting it together on the sewing machine. And there were a lot of YouTubers back then that were doing thrift flips, but I found everything they were doing so intimidating. And then one could save so much time if I benefit from all the sewing that has already been done in the garment, but I just change the things that I want to change to make it fit me or suit what I'm looking for. And so it started even just as a time-saving measure of like, half the work's already done. I just got to kind of like move this seam over here a little bit. And then over time, as I got into it, I started seeing like there's so many ways you save money, you reduce waste, you get to take something that was on its way to the landfill and give it new life, new energy, new personality. And so like the light bulb moment was like, we can save money and time, but then the long-term benefit was like just so much more creative options and feeling good about putting something old into something new.
I would say for me, it was somewhat of a light bulb moment because working at Google, obviously the largest search engine in the entire world, you're able to see where consumers are looking and what things are trending towards and how the world is shifting. And having always worked in fashion at Google, we saw massive spikes just a couple of years ago of like zero waste lifestyle and sustainable clothing brands. And so for many of my brands who were fast fashion brands and had kind of put their stake in the ground specifically with fast fashion and buying something in every color, this was the opposite of everything that they had kind of pitched their tent on. So in digging into like the analytics and seeing how people were searching and what market there was for zero waste lifestyle and sustainable clothing, that's when I realized, wait, this is actually a huge movement. And in doing my research, I realized it's a movement 100% for the better. So I started really realizing that like sustainability and fashion go hand in hand. And I want to have a zero waste lifestyle. I want to buy sustainable clothing and help make the world a better place.
I love that in both of those stories, like Wendy, it wasn't even about necessarily sustainability for you. It was about saving time and money. And Danielle, you picked up on it, like these can go hand in hand. They don't have to be at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I'm curious, this is for both of you, Wendy, you got started 10 years ago. Danielle, you talked about noticing this in the past like 4 or 5 years. How have you noticed this movement change, and how have you seen it at its case of being a trend to now a movement?
So you'll see brands like Adidas have a 100% like upcycled shoe, or Glossier specifically have packaging that's 100% recycled material or upcycled material. And you think that those are just small like points, but then reiterating on my previous point, you realize that like this has been a trend that has been growing literally since 2004. So when we look at the data, there has been a constant incline of sustainability related to fashion and clothing in general since 2004. And we're actually at its like peak right now. So we haven't even seen like the breadth or the depth to this. Like we are still on an incline. So that's what kind of made me realize, whoa, this isn't just a couple of data points of brands just trying to dip their toe in the water. This is a full blown movement instead of like a couple month trend.
Yeah, and I think in what Danielle said too, there's this token of like every bit of progress is building on what has happened up until that point. And so you continue to see the ball rolling bigger and bigger. Like for me, like it used to just be my options were buy brand new fabric or maybe like get some stuff at a garage sale or something, but that's only on a smaller scale. But now that so much time has passed and people are more and more interested in looking for sustainable ways to approach fashion, there are so many more options now for me to buy dead stock fabric that was like going to head to the waste, but now they know there's a huge market for people who want to buy this. So like there's a local store in Toronto here that only sells dead stock, and I love shopping there. That store, they have a steady flow of clientele because they know people are interested in their fabrics and they don't have to think of it anymore as like waste or like expired product. And then I've also worked with a fabric company that took plastic bottles and recycled it into fabric. And the only way they were able to do that was because they knew there were brands out there looking for more sustainable fabrics to put into their clothing, into their shoes. And so every bit that we can do ends up kind of opening up another door for a next stage of us getting deeper and deeper into like a full circle approach on sustainable fashion.
Yes. It sounds like, this has been something that's been around for a while. Like these stores that are dedicated to dead stock have been around. It's now that consumers are paying attention, they're more considerate. And these larger end brands that may not have been focused on sustainability are now kind of like picking up wins. And we're seeing consumers really drive a lot of that. As you mentioned, Danielle, the search trends really shows what people are interested in, and now brands are responding. I'm curious, like now that the brands are taking aims to launch these products and be focused on in their messaging sustainability, how can they use social video and social media to tell that story in a way that takes advantage of this moment among consumers, but also does it in a more meaningful way than just signposting that they have, included recycled materials, or that they're also donating money? Either one.
I can go.
Okay.
So I would say I always, since I first started at Google working with brands, the number one thing I always ask is, what is your why? And telling an authentic brand story about yourself and your brand, why you started the brand, what keeps you going, what keeps you up at night. That is the number one way to engage this new age audience that cares about sustainability across the board. So not just sustainability in fashion, but sustainability in houses and sustainability in cars. It's a 100% sustainable lifestyle that they're going after. So telling the story of your brand and making your brand really tell a story that's provocative and compelling and shows them that you're different. The fashion industry is so saturated. So your why is so important at the end of the day. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is truly engagement. Like, I remember every brand that responded to one of my comments on their YouTube channel, or responded to one of my comments on, their Instagram page. So 100% engagement will get you a really long way. And also just viewing yourself as you're starting a brand, yourself and your team as influencers for your company. So as much as you're comfortable, like being on the forefront, like talking to folks, talking to them about your vision and your dream and why sustainability is important to you, at the end of the day will go a really long way on social, especially that of YouTube, where everyone's going to tell their story and their vision.
Mm-hmm. And I would add to that, I find sometimes when a brand is large, it starts to feel like it has to maintain a certain type of momentum or tone, and that changing direction is very daunting. But I find it's really good to approach these things with a sense of humility. Like, hey, maybe you didn't jump into this industry all like guns blazing and all excited about sustainability, but now that you see that the current is changing, don't be stubborn. Just like be humble, acknowledge that like that's the direction you want to head to. You're not perfect at it, but it's where you want to go. I think like it's a lot of pressure to feel like you got to just hit it perfect every single time. But like we've seen, like Danielle said, it's a growing movement. It's been going on for a very long time. There's no need to act like you invented it. And so just like join along, jump in the conversation, and acknowledge publicly, even if you need to, that these are the baby steps, but these are the important steps that you choose.
That's a really great point, Wendy. I would add to that, like brands like H&M who have like come to the table, and while originally they may not have been like 100% sustainable, they now have content collections and they're doing collaborations with folks who are really passionate about sustainability. So I'd say there's two lessons from that is, number one, collaborations can go a really, really long way for you, solidifying your brand in a certain space. And then the second piece is just because, exactly like you said, you stake your foot in the ground with fast fashion doesn't mean there isn't room for you to slow down a bit and care more about sustainability and the environment.
I love that. Okay, I'm going to ask on that. To these points, and I don't expect us to solve this issue today, but greenwashing is a problem. It's something that we see kind of on the other side of this movement of people trying to jump onto the movement because they see the interest in it and the consumer care that's paid toward it, and they're not going to be perfect overnight. They might not be able to transform everything. They might never be able to transform everything. How can consumers push brands to be more conscious around their impact, and how can brands respond without it being just token? Like, what should they keep in mind when they might be taking more baby steps rather than full leaps?
Yeah, I find actually like changing the direction of a company is a weird kind of like chicken and egg thing, where sometimes it's about your intention and then the action flows from that. And then sometimes, even if you're not totally there yet with your intention, the action can help like feed into you feeling more like it. It's like how sometimes you love something naturally and sometimes you're like, I choose to love this thing, but over time you're like, oh, it's growing on me. And so I think for me, like it's nice to start with intention, because that's like deeper down in the core, and there's more thought and contemplation that's gone into it. But I think there's a degree to which if like you feel like the pressures out there from a brand perspective, like just try something, but do it with an open ear and open mind and open heart, and see what people have to say about it. And over time, I think you'll see how like that feedback taken in can morph you into the right direction, even if you weren't 100% set on like what that direction was going to be in the first place. So that's one thing. And then I think as consumers, I think the pressure is great. And Danielle's mentioned that a lot of this movement has been very like consumer driven. I think the pressure is great. And I think there's no need to like, shower applause everywhere, but to just be acknowledging that, like, celebrate the things you can celebrate, challenge the things you can challenge. There's like, I think encouraging things for the better is a lot better than like beating things down until they're like demoralized and they just give up.
Totally. Great response, Wendy. I would say the only thing I would add to that is as you're telling this brand story, as you're pivoting, it's really, really important that you involve, and if you're comfortable, the key decision makers within your company that are helping drive that. So maybe it's doing a spotlight on your head of product or you as the founder of like why this is important to you. Maybe it's, I have one brand that I really love called Angela Roy. They actually go to take you behind the scenes in their factories of them making their vegan leather and working with the different suppliers to make the decisions on like, okay, well, this one's going to cost us more, but it actually helps the environment. This one's costs us less, and it's, you know, increases our carbon footprint. Like, I love the fact that they're taking us behind the scenes on those decisions that they're making, because it allows me to feel like I'm invested in this company and this journey and the footprint that they have on the world. And then the other piece is off of Wendy's point as well, too. I've had this conversation a lot as we've delved into a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations with brands, is it's about progress and presence over perfection. A lot of people think to show up 1000% perfectly, both as a brand or as an individual, and being an ally to a certain cause. But really, it's about showing up and at least being there, putting your voice in the room and understanding that your voice carries weight. So I think a lot of brands kind of drag their feet because they want a 100% perfect launch and a 100% perfect marketing strategy. But really, it's about just solidifying your place in the room and being there to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true, and I think I need to record you saying that, Danielle, and that can be my daily affirmation as an individual to not have to show up being perfect, but to make progress. I really love what you said too about the why. It's not, if your why is profit, if your why is impressions and a new consumer audience, you're not probably doing sustainability for the right reasons. And if that why is because you care, or because this is important to your consumers and what your consumers care about is important to you, I think everything kind of flows from that. And I think it's so ripe for YouTube that like a factory tour, how it's made, like to me, that's interesting regardless of if the focus is on sustainability or another conscious effort. And so it's like kind of to a brand's advantage to be able to use the public's interest in like these types of videos to also tell that story, and also to explain like why pricing is might be high, or what efforts you can make progress on and what efforts you can't. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think it's a great time to take advantage of it.
And the only thing I would add to that, Sasha, is just how brands show up on YouTube. Like maybe you're selling a $350 sweater, but you're showing people 15 different ways to use it. To me, that's putting your voice in the room towards sustainability. Before, like in the pre-age, it was buy this sweater in 17 different colors. Now it's buy this one sweater and use it in 17 different ways. And I think that change of pace in the way that we're thinking about it is really, really important for brands to catch on to. And I think there's quite a few brands in the industry that are doing that well.
Danielle, I love that. And I think you bring me to a great question. What are some examples of formats you like, videos that you've seen, brands that you think are really getting it right? And Wendy, of course, I love your answer on this too.
I would say we've moved a ton towards like this resale culture, whether it be like Rebag or Depop or Poshmark or whatever it is, where people are consuming something, maybe they wear it a couple of times, and if it's been sitting in your closet for a year, sell it. I think that resale marketplace that's now available for luxury items all the way down to fast fashion or pretty much anything that you want to sell on the internet is huge. And it's definitely where we need to go as like an industry from a fashion perspective. So I think there's quite a bit of movement there that I'm really, really excited about. And so many different brands now are getting massive amounts of capital funding from investment firms to like really keep this push going, because it is an investment into like eco-friendly sustainability in fashion. But I love the work that I've already mentioned that H&M has done. I love the work that Adidas has done. I love the work that Glossier has done. done, even like, for example, like Reformation, in the way that they're really coming to the forefront for sustainable fashion. I think that's really, really important to get people to slow down in the way that they consume. And it might seem, oh, in Patagonia, it might seem, there was an ad that they did a while ago, and it was basically like, don't buy this jacket. And you would like with the brands like selling clothing that like you wouldn't tell people not to buy the jacket, but they had a huge like Black Friday push on like, don't buy from us. Like from a sustainability perspective, like you already have 15 jackets. So I think that's a really, really great advertisement to look at that they put out a couple of years ago that I was really impressed by. So I remember that sustainability is definitely a lifestyle and not like a moment that you can just like tip your head into and then be like, I don't know about this, and then like bring back. It really has to penetrate every portion of your business, from product to marketing to advertising, to any sort of business side. So I think there's a lot of brands doing really exciting things, but don't let the big names fool you. Like, you as a smaller brand or you as a founder can make those decisions towards sustainability like right now and really put your stake in the ground for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking, like there's a shoe brand that I've shown with my audience before where it's called Aloha's, and they manufacture all their shoes ahead of time based on people's pre-orders so that they reduce their unsold waste. And I think that type of thing is like even a part of the fashion industry that many people don't know about, that's where a lot of waste happens, in that product gets made but never actually gets purchased. And then I think part of this FIT conference too, we've had Eileen Fisher as part of it as a brand, and they're another one who they have a program in place to take back the clothing if you've decided that like you've lived your best life in it and you want to give it back and pass it on to someone else to enjoy it, or that they can take it and bring it back into their raw material system. And those types, it's very interesting how there's so many different ways to approach it. And I think like there's a degree to which being a smaller brand actually can make that conversation more personal, and you can like listen a lot better to what people are responding to. And you don't have to feel like there's this like gigantic scale to which you got to like make sweeping reform across the entire business. But even just like for me personally, even with selling items myself online, I just decided one day I'm going to take this step and just buy my packaging from recycled plastic bottles. And that's going to be the step I'm taking in the packaging department. And then as you start to feel like, oh, that was okay, it's all going all right there and there's no complications, then you bring in another part that can be a bit more sustainable. And so, yeah, go step by step and don't feel like you have to make a whole campaign from it. I think when a customer buys from you and sees all those little steps, like the little piece of paper was made from recycled and the packaging was recycled, like those are the actions speak louder than words moments with your customers.
Mm. And I feel like as a consumer myself and someone who shops often, like if I buy fewer but buy things I care more about, that means I care more about each step of the process. You know, I'm not doing kind of like a huge 90s era shopping spree. I'm buying like 4 things. And so I want to know, like, where did this come from? Who tended the sheep that made the wool that becomes the Allbirds. So I think it's kind of an exciting moment, because before, where consumers like didn't know about it, they may not have cared, and now we care, and we get this opportunity to see all of this information and this like radical transparency that makes us feel good about the purchasing choices that we're making too.
That's a really great point, Sasha. I remember a while ago working with a brand called Nodam. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're New York based and they're a cashmere company. And I started working with them very early on in the journey. And they have this goal of like just showing people the actual like sheep farmers that were shearing the sheep for their cashmere and everything like that. And I think it was huge that they went to like Mongolia and did that, and showcased that piece. So as exactly like you're saying, really bringing people along for the whole production journey, if you're comfortable with that, is something that can go a very long way for you from a brand story perspective. I also just love everything that Stella McCartney has done. Like, honestly, it's been amazing to see all the work that they've done for the world of sustainability, as well as Heron Preston. Like, one of his largest passions is really sustainable fashion and helping the world become a better place. He did quite a few collaborations with like the sanitation folks in New York, and like did a collaboration there, really talking about sustainability and sustainable clothing with materials that were recycled. So huge fan of all the things that these designers are doing. I would say also don't be scared to sustainability costs. It is really easy to make products
easy.
the world. Exactly. It is very easy to do that. So I think if you're worried about price point, just remember that like compared to last year, there are literally 2.3 times more searches for like sustainable clothing. Mm-hmm. So if you're worried about like people won't like this because of this price point, remember that this is of interest, and passing on a bit of the cost because it's a sustainable product is okay. It is honestly okay. And the more that people pay, the more that they are invested. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying just go crazy with the price point. But at the same time, like if it makes the world a better place, I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so true. Like all the time, there's cheap ways to get things done. And it's like infuriating sometimes to look at the price differences. But that's why I think it's so good to, like Danielle said, like bring in more transparency into the process. Like for so long, the fashion industry has just kind of like shrouded what goes on into putting together a garment, into design and research and test fitting, and then scaling sizes. And like you really take for like, of course you take it for granted the moment you're in a store and you can pay like $5 for a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And so like illuminating that, like there was a project I did a few years ago where it was with the company that was making the plastic recycled into fabric. And so I flew to Haiti and documented the plastic collection process, plastic cutting and processing process, and then like how it spun to the yarns. And my whole goal the whole time was to find the people who worked on it and show their hands, to show like, this is how many people had to touch your finished work before it got onto you and landed on you as a t-shirt. And I think once you see more and more of those hands, those minds, those people who are working on it, there's no way you can continue stomaching that $5 a t-shirt is anywhere near a fair price. And like, that's the eye-opening work that I think should continue so that we can see more and more of how the industry works.
I love that, Wendy, especially because I think sustainable doesn't always mean ethical, and getting really deep and showing like, look at all of these people. When you pay $5, is that what you think these people need for their livelihoods, or would you rather pay a fairer price because of the community that comes together to make fashion happen?
I love that. Hashtag fair fashion.
Yeah. Hashtag. Comment below your favorite hashtag. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to wrap us up with one question. You're speaking to this digitally dispersed audience of FIT students who are going to be the future designers and creative directors and creatives and mavericks in the fashion world. As a consumer, as a strategist, as a lover of the world of fashion, what is your request to them? What do you want to see for the future that they're going to create?
I think my thing is like, sometimes fashion and the aggressive cycle it can be in, you kind of lose track of the fact that it's such a form of like self-expression as well as responding to the society around you. And you can start thinking in really narrow terms, like orange is the big thing and I need to get it in this culotte. And you forget that expression part. And I would say for the students who want to be leaders into the future, like keep thinking about the world you want to live in, the world you believe your customers want to live in, and give them the designs and the outfits that they'll feel proud to wear, because that's going to be where you find more loyalty and attachment, and you won't get caught up in this rat race of like chasing colors and trends, but just genuinely being like, this is a beautiful garment, and on top of that, the story behind it is meaningful and important to me. I'm proud to wear it, and I would like to wear it for years to come, as long as I don't ruin it in the washing machine by accident.
Watch, girl, I'm in the sink every day.
Yeah, and I just think like remembering that self-expression and that fashion reflects aspects of society going on around us. Speak to that and give people that opportunity to literally put it on their skin and wear it as part of it too.
That's a great point, Wendy. I feel like I learned the same thing in partnering a ton with up and coming designers and even leaders in the industry. COVID was definitely a time that made designers slow down and be really intentional about what they put into the world and to do it in their own time. So I feel like there's so much pressure as a designer to have collection after collection after collection after collection and let it hit, let it bang. But really started being a lot more intentional about the expression and the artistic piece of their work, to where they, in the course of the year, maybe put out one collection, whereas normally they might have put out 4. So I think just being really intentional about what you put out into the world, exactly like what you said, Wendy, because it is an expression of you. And while the business side of it is important and profit is important, at the end of the day, like from an expression standpoint and from a sustainability standpoint, like think about what that collection adds to the world. And you should be good to go.
And you're set.
Easy as that. Perfect. Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you so much, Wendy. It was so wonderful. To all the FIT students watching this, we hope that you learned something, and don't forget to check out Wendy's YouTube channel and our forthcoming YouTube channel.
Joint venture.